What's up, Bro Nation? We're going into week 1 of the NFL, which means fantasy football. Who should we start? Who should we sit? We're talking quarterbacks. Let's go ahead. Let's dive in. But before that, what's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy, Broshmo. Just in case you did not know, so if you're enjoying the content, thumbs up. You know this. If you're really enjoying the content, become a bro and join the Bro Nation. I don't know why I'm calling it that. Let me know if you have any better ideas in the comments. But let's go ahead. Let's start with the Thursday slated game. The only game on Thursday. Packers and the Bears. If you got Aaron Rodgers, you probably spent like a 7th round pick or earlier on him. So you're kind of in a situation where you have to start him against a very tough Bears defense. But last year, man, the first game of the year, he came out and he balled. So Aaron Rodgers is a baller. So he should put up numbers for you. As for Mitch Trubisky, I have a little less confidence. He does have a rushing upside, but that Packers secondary is pretty scary. The whole defense is all upgraded, and I don't have too much faith in Trubisky's skill set, but I know Nagy is going to put him in a position to succeed. So I think our boy Mitch here is a top 16 quarterback. So in most leagues, that makes him a starting quarterback. He's not going to win you any games for your fantasy team, that is. But I think he's an okay pick at the beginning of the year. Go ahead and start him if you have to. Now, starting with Sunday, we talk about the Ravens and the Dolphins. This hurts as a Dolphins fan, but it looks like we are tanking. I would say Lamar Jackson's a must start, except for he's not going to get a lot of work in the passing game because I think this game might be over before it begins. But I think he will be doing it in the rushing game. I say he will have a top 12 performance for you. Go ahead and start him. Dolphins, Fitzpatrick, Rosen, who's starting there? Doesn't matter. You're not starting either. Now, Tennessee versus the Browns. Marcus Mariota, whatever. You're not going to start Mariota. He's only put up one top, he put up one top 12 fantasy performance in a season, and that was like 2 or 3 years ago. He's just not he's not a starting caliber fantasy quarterback. You can do much better. He doesn't really offer much as a runner either. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about Baker Mayfield. You're starting Baker Mayfield. Even though Tennessee has a fierce defense, you're starting Baker Mayfield because you probably got him in the 5th or the 6th round. Go ahead, start Baker Mayfield. He should be fine. And we're going to the Falcons versus the Vikings. You got Kirk Cousins versus Matt Ryan. Kirk Cousins, honestly, he should have a pretty good game here because I'm not saying the Falcons have a bad defense. They were beat up. They were hurt last year. But I expect Kirk Cousins to be much better. I would say start Kirk Cousins this week. Kirk Cousins, I think, is a guy I liked. You could get him almost basically for free in the last round of any of your drafts. I would get him as a quarterback too. He's a guy that's going to be steady for you. But look for someone with upside. But I think he's a start this week against the Falcon defense. I think this is going to be a not necessarily a shootout, but I think it will be in like a 28-24 game. Matt Ryan, he's got an explosive offense. I'm a little worried about the defensive line, but Matt Ryan's been a top 5 fantasy quarterback in the league for quite a bit. So go ahead and start Matt Ryan. The Bills versus the Jets. I don't think Sam Darnold should be a fantasy starter yet. He has some talent around him, but I don't think he's there yet. I want to see him prove it a little bit. So sit Sam Darnold if you even have him. As far as Josh Allen, though, I think he's a start. I think he's definitely a start this week. He could pick apart that terrible Jet secondary. He's got better offensive weapons. The offensive line looks much better. He's always been a threat in the pass game anyway. And a lot of his rushing yards, they come off. They're not designed runs, so it's not like he's looking to run the ball, but he does. And he does so efficiently. But go ahead and start Josh Allen. I think he's going to be very good this year. Let's look at the Redskins versus the Eagles. Case Keenum, you're not starting him. Get that out of your head. As far as Carson Wentz, though, he's going up facing a terrible secondary there in Washington. Even Josh Norman's not really good anymore. He's been declining. But yeah, go ahead, start Wentz. He should have a really good game there for with the Redskin offense that doesn't look like they're really going to score. Now let's talk about the Rams and the Panthers. Cam Newton versus Jared Goff, who just got paid a lot. I think that secondary for the Panthers is a bit of, not I won't say a liability, but they are a bit unproven, and I could see Jared Goff picking them apart. And he did have that early stretch last year where he was beating sub 500 teams, and I think the Panthers this year will probably be a sub 500 team. So I like Goff right here in this game. Cam Newton, he provides a lot of upside. I don't know if he's a game time decision right now or yet, but keep an eye on that if you do have him. But he might be a game time decision, but you won't start as backup anyway. But oh man, this is a toughie because Cam Newton does offer a lot of value as a runner. So I would say go ahead and start Cam Newton if you don't have anyone else. I think he'll put in probably a top 15 performance just because he has that run-in edge. Now let's talk about the Chiefs versus the Jaguars. Pat Mahomes, he's a start. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? He's a start. He's a start. He's a must start every week. Jaguars, Nick Foles. Man, I don't know if I could really say the same about Foles, just because that defense will play well for Jacksonville, but how long can they play that well? How long can you contain Mahomes? And Nick Foles, what, you're going to have to be playing catch up with Mahomes? I mean, you know what? This might turn into where Foles is just having to sling the ball downfield. So, I don't feel confident about Foles. I want to first see him in this first game. I would sit Foles this week. Let's talk about the Colts versus the Chargers. We got Brissett for the Colts. I think he's a sit. Let's wait and see him play. He's facing a very good Chargers defense, even without Derwin James. So I would just kind of wait and see. Phillip Rivers, he's always been a solid starter. I wouldn't necessarily say he's a sit, but he's not a must start. But yeah, I would go right now. Let's go ahead. Let's make Phillip Rivers a start, because you got Austin Eckler, who he does a lot in the pass game, but he was under 4 yards per carry last year. And then Justin Jackson, who he's all right, he's okay, but he's not Melvin Gordon. But yeah, I would just go ahead and start him. I think they're gonna have to pass to win this game. I mean, it's the NFL. It's football. It's a passing league. You have to pass to win. What were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about Seahawks versus Bengals. Andy Dalton, guess what? Don't start him. Sit him. Why do you have him on? Drop him. What are you doing? Russell Wilson, he's not the quarterback, or he's not the fantasy quarterback, I should say, he once was. I don't know if his numbers from last year for as little, his production was not little, but the opportunities were. That's what worries me. He's not going to have that same production, which was really good, with the same opportunities he did last year. His opportunities are few and far between. He's a top 15 quarterback. He's not going to play bad. So go ahead, start Russell Wilson. I think there's guys with bigger upside than Wilson, though. Now we're talking about the Giants versus the Cowboys. Eli Manning, if you drafted him, you made a mistake, and we shouldn't be talking. You came to the wrong video. I don't know why. Why are you partaking in fantasy football? You think this is a game? You think this is a game? It is a game. Anyway, let's talk about Dak Prescott. He should have a solid game with or without Zeke. He's always in the top 10 last 3 years. He's been in the top 10 since entering the league. He should continue that. He provides a lot in the run game as well. Dak must start against a very, I don't want to say weak defense, but a weak defense. Let's say a weak defense compared to most of the NFL. Now we're talking about the Lions and the Cardinals. Very interesting matchup. Kyler Murray, I think if you got him, I don't know if you've had to reach for him or whatever, but go ahead and start him. I think this is gonna be a shootout, because I have Matthew Stafford as a start. He has a really good opportunity. If you're unsure about your week 1 matchup with whoever your starting quarterback is, pick up Matthew Stafford. That Cardinal secondary, I think, is about to get ripped apart. You got no Patrick Peterson. Robert Alford's out for first 8 weeks. So They got their rookie Byron Murphy and Tremaine Brock, who's been bouncing around between teams the last few years. He's going to rip these guys apart. I expect Marvin Jones to have a much better year than he did last year. I think Amendola is going to play a big part in the passing game. This is just going to be, I think it's going to be a shootout. I think both guys are starts for this game. 49ers versus the Bucks. Woo, two teams with weak secondaries. Garoppolo, I don't know how I feel about Garoppolo. I say Winston is a start, though. Because, I mean, he just got to keep the ball away from Richard Sherman because no one else in the secondary is scary. What about Garoppolo? Because I have a lot more faith that they're going to be way more balanced than the Bucks are. So I would kind of go with the sit and wait approach with Garoppolo this week. You could find a guy on the waiver wire, maybe with a little higher upside. It's a great matchup. I would just like to see how, because they got Tevin Coleman, they got Matt Breida. They honestly, they could dish those guys maybe 15 carries a piece. At least 12. So I just don't think the opportunities will be there, and what could be a blowout for the 49ers. Not them getting blown out, but you know how it goes. Steelers versus the Patriots. Ben Roethlisberger. Everyone's always down every year on Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know why. Last year he was, I think, a top 5 fantasy quarterback, but you could have got him in like the 12th round. Yeah, he doesn't have Antonio Brown. He didn't have Le'Veon last year. Here's the thing. He's going to put up some 6 interception games for you, and he's going to put up some bangers, 5 touchdown passing games for you. That's just Ben Roethlisberger. That's just the type of player he is. So I say he comes out and he plays a good game here. I say he comes out and he's gonna have like 3 touchdowns, an interception, maybe 6 to 7 rushing touchdowns. But no, I say he's definitely a start this week. He should be a top 10 quarterback in this matchup. Tom Brady's never been a strong fantasy quarterback, but that secondary for the Steelers is just full of question marks. Honestly, I would sit Brady. I think they're going to get a lot done in the run game. They have actually kind of been steering more towards the run game anyway, regardless. Even with now Josh Gordon reinstated, I would just, again, what I said with Garoppolo, the sit and wait approach. Yeah, with Brady. Now we're talking the Monday night games. Texans versus the Saints. Deshaun Watson, you probably spent like a 5th round pick on him. You started him. That's just how it is. Drew Brees, though. Will this be a shootout? I don't know. That Saints defense, I think, can keep the Texans in check. Drew Brees, especially if they're in the driver's seat, doesn't put up great numbers, fantasy-wise. I would give him a start this week, though, in what could be a really fun game to watch. Then we got the Raiders versus the Broncos. Flacco's and don't start Flacco. As for Derek Carr, though, interesting matchup against a very weak Broncos secondary. I say, yeah, you know what? There's better options out there. Go and get yourself a Matthew Stafford. Just sit in Derek Carr this week. That's it for the video. I hope y'all have a good slate of games here in fantasy. I hope your players pop off. But until next time, y'all be easy, my friends. Later.